All right, let's dive into a question that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. It's the whole idea behind the book Who Built the Moon by Christopher Knight and Alan Butler. Now, before you dismiss it, the authors basically challenge us to do one simple thing. Just look at the evidence. So, you know what? Let's do that. So, it all starts with something we've all seen pictures of, maybe even seen in person, a perfect solar eclipse. It's an incredible sight, right? But the authors of this book argue that this is no beautiful accident. The odds of this happening are, well, astronomical. Why would our little moon be the exact right size and at the exact right distance to perfectly cover our massive sun?
And this is where the number 400 comes in. This number it's just so improbable, it's wild. Get this, the sun's diameter is 400 times bigger than the moon's. But by some cosmic coincidence, the sun is also 400 times farther away from us. This perfect 400-to-1 ratio is the only reason we get these perfect eclipses. The book says this incredible alignment, this cosmic bullseye, is clue number one that something very, very strange is going on with our moon.
Now, our fascination with the moon isn't anything new. For thousands of years, we've been looking up at it, measuring its movements, and even building massive structures to align with it. The book suggests that our ancient ancestors knew way more about the cosmos than we usually give them credit for. I mean, just think about this for a second. Ancient Mesopotamians weren't just watching eclipses happen. They were predicting them. They had figured out the Saros Cycle, this super complex 18-year pattern that tells you when and where eclipses are going to happen. That takes some serious long-term observation and a pretty sophisticated understanding of math. It just proves they had this really deep knowledge of the moon's complex dance through the sky.
And this knowledge wasn't just, theories on a clay tablet. These people were master engineers. A professor named Alexander Thom spent his life surveying ancient stone circles and things like that, and he proved they were all built using a standard, super precise unit of measurement he called the Megalithic Yard. They used it to build these huge structures that lined up perfectly with the sun, the stars, and yep, you guessed it, the moon.
Okay, let's jump forward to our time, to the modern scientific era, because this is where the mystery really, really deepens. The more we learn about the moon with all our technology, the more questions seem to pop up. The source material for this explainer points out a whole series of scientific oddities that our standard theories have a really hard time explaining. Okay, so to put it bluntly, our moon is a total weirdo. It's the fifth biggest moon in the entire solar system, but it's orbiting a small, rocky planet, not some huge gas giant. Compared to the Earth, it is enormous. It's a complete outlier. Most planets have moons that are just tiny little specks compared to them. Ours is just different. So what's the official story? Well, the leading theory is called the Big Whack theory, that some Mars-sized object slammed into a baby Earth, and the debris formed the moon. Problem is, the math doesn't quite work. According to the book, for that crash to have been powerful enough to knock Earth over to its 23.5-degree tilt, which is what gives us our seasons, the thing that hit us would have needed to be way bigger, like 3 times the size of Mars. But a smash up that big, it doesn't create the moon we have today. It's a pretty big hole in the accepted story. And that leads us to maybe the weirdest piece of evidence of all. Back during the Apollo missions, NASA intentionally crashed parts of the spacecraft onto the moon's surface, and the seismic sensors they left behind picked up the impact. But it wasn't a dull thud like you'd expect from hitting a solid rock. No, the entire moon vibrated. It rang like a bell for hours. That strongly suggests that it's not solid all the way through.
And this quote from the legendary astronomer Carl Sagan just cuts right to the chase. If that seismic data is telling us the moon is hollow, we have a huge scientific problem. Because as Sagan himself said, a natural satellite just can't be hollow. So if it is hollow, what in the world does that mean?
So now we get to the book's main event, its most controversial idea. After laying out all of these weird anomalies, the perfect eclipse, the flawed origin story, the strange ringing, the authors propose a really radical explanation that actually ties everything together. And there it is, the core argument of the whole book. If the data suggests the moon is a hollow sphere, and if a natural moon can't be hollow, then the authors say they're left with just one logical conclusion. The moon isn't natural. It has to be an artificial construct. Now, I know, our immediate reaction is to just laugh that off. It goes against everything we've ever learned.
But the authors bring up this fantastic quote from Albert Einstein to kind of challenge us on that. Is our common sense telling us this is impossible based on evidence, or is it just based on a collection of ideas we grew up with about what's possible and what's not? So, if we just go with this idea for a second, that the moon is artificial, the theory gets even bigger. It's not just a hollow rock. It's an artifact. It's a piece of technology. And maybe, just maybe, it's also a message waiting for a species like us to finally get smart enough to read it.
Let's circle back to that number 400, that perfect ratio for an eclipse. The authors argue a number that clean, that round, is no accident. They believe it's a pointer, a signal that this system was designed by an intelligence that uses a base 10 counting system. You know, the same one we do. It's like the first sentence in a message left for us to find.
But where could the rest of the message be? The book brings up a really cool theory from an astrobiologist named Paul Davies. What if the best hard drive in the universe isn't metal or stone, but DNA itself? He suggests a message could be hidden in what we used to call junk DNA. And get this, in 2004, scientists literally removed huge chunks of this so-called junk DNA from mice, and the mice were perfectly fine. So that raises a huge question. If this DNA doesn't do anything, why is it so carefully copied and preserved in species after species? Maybe it's not junk at all. Maybe it's a message waiting to be decoded. And all of it, leads to the ultimate question. If the moon was built, if it has a message inside, who were the architects? The authors of our source material wrap things up by offering 3 distinct possibilities. Okay, possibility 1 is theological, God, a divine creator who built the whole solar system and left the moon's perfect math as a signature, proof of a grand design. Possibility 2 is extraterrestrial. Some super advanced alien civilization built the moon to make Earth stable, to act as an incubator for life, and to serve as a signpost for when we were ready. And the third and final possibility, this one might be the most mind-bending of all. Us. Humans from the distant future using time travel to go back and build the one thing they needed to ensure their own existence ever happened. A perfect time loop. In the end, the book Who Built the Moon doesn't pretend to have the one definitive answer. It just piles up a mountain of really strange evidence and asks us to think again about what we assume is true. And it leaves us with this one final provocative question. If our closest neighbor in space isn't what it seems, if it really is a message, are we ready to read it?